Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Nerd Pod Generations on YouTube. Once again, my name is Steve Taylor. I'm one of the co-hosts of Nerd Pod Generations, which is a weekly podcast that me and my good friend Al Jutsum like to do. We talk about everything pop culture and nerd related. This YouTube video is going to be similar to my Star Wars rant. It's something Al and I have brought up in previous videos about DC and the DCEU and the issues that they've had with it, the issues with what's going on now with the merger that happened with Discovery TV, which bought out Warner Brothers, and now they're completely changing everything and kind of screwing everything up. In fact, today it was just announced that the new Aquaman movie will not be coming out in March. It's coming out in December, I think it's 23rd of 2023. So that's getting pushed almost a full year, which is kind of insane because I believe it's already been pushed once before. So I'm kind of gonna give you my thought on why the DCEU failed, and it's very easy for me, and it all starts with Man of Steel. Okay, Man of Steel set the tone. Man of Steel is the DCEU's Iron Man. Even though Iron Man was this unknown character to a lot of people, he was core to a lot of major nerds in that love Marvel and read the comic books and all that. But as far as the normal moviegoer, a lot of people didn't know who Iron Man was, and the movie is what really catapulted the MCU into what it became, because they took the groundwork from that and followed it with the remainder of the films, at least in the first four phases. Every movie in the first four phases of the MCU has that DNA from the first Iron Man movie. You look at Man of Steel. All right. So first off, I'm a massive Superman fan. I love Superman. He's one of my favorite superheroes. One of my favorite comic book movies ever is the original Superman with Christopher Reeve. And you look at that movie and the difference between the two. The original Superman, it was colorful. It was full of hope. It was well written. It was well acted. I mean, it was written by the guy that wrote The Godfather, Mario Puzo, for God's sakes. It was directed by Richard Donner, who is a phenomenal director and has countless movies, great movies to his name, including the Lethal Weapon franchise. It has great actors in it. I mean, you have Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, Margot Kidder, Christopher Reeve. Once again, it's loaded. But the big thing it had was heart. It had a lot of heart. It had, the Clark Kent character was utilized perfectly, and Christopher Reeve pulled it off great. The scene I like to compare the two movies to be at the original Superman and Man of Steel, because where I'm going with this is Man of Steel to me was a hollow, CGI-filled money grab, and I think it did no justice to the character. It was too dark. It was too gritty. Everything does not need to be a Christopher Nolan movie. And unfortunately, I am not the biggest fan of Zack Snyder. I do like his cut of Justice League better than the theatrical release, but that's not saying much because the theatrical release was so bad. But when you look at Man of Steel, the big thing that caught me in that movie was its lack of heart. It barely showed Clark Kent at all. It did not show the character as Superman's alter ego. It showed him as just growing up and becoming the Superman character. What made the original so great is you got to see them simultaneously. You got to see Clark Kent as the alter ego of Superman. This movie, you really didn't see that at all. And the big thing that connects it to me is the death of Jonathan Kent. Okay, in the Man of Steel, you have a horrible CGI tornado that comes out of nowhere that's bigger than any tornado you've ever seen in a movie since Twister. The CGI is terrible in the tornado. There's about 20 to 30 people that have to leave and run underneath the bridge. And Jonathan Kent dies because he doesn't want his son to expose himself as this superhero alien in front of 20 people who are terrified with a tornado by saving him. So he tells him to wait, and he dies. Stupid as hell to me. A, there's 0 point to it. B, his death is it's useless for the plot. Like, it doesn't do anything to make him appreciate his powers. But if you go back to the original Superman movie, his dad dies of a heart attack. And I'll never forget that line he says to his mom, with all my powers, with all the things I can do, I could not save him. And that, to me, no pun intended, is the heart of that movie. It's saying that, you know, you could have these amazing powers and all this great abilities, but you can't solve every problem. And that, I think, is the underlining line that was missing from Man of Steel. And, you know, right from the shoot, you have an overabundance of, once again, and I don't want to keep harping on this, but an overabundance of CGI. I mean, the opening on Krypton looks like Avatar, as far as the creatures, you know, the design of the world, everything. It was awful. And goes to Earth. You have the horrible fight at the end, which everyone makes a big deal of, and it's true. You know, I understand if Zod wouldn't allow him to leave the city, but Superman never makes the attempt to take him out of the city. And I used this analogy in our last podcast, Nerdpod Generation podcast, where in Age of Ultron, when Hulk is fighting Hulkbuster armor, and Hulk's mind is being controlled by Wanda Maximoff, Iron Man at least attempts to take him out of the city. And they don't make it because the Hulk refuses to allow him to do it. And so that, to me, is the difference in what makes Man of Steel so bad, is Superman never makes the attempt to take Zod out of the city. You know, give him a bear hug, throw him, fly at, whatever. Even if he flew away so Zod would chase him, you would assume Zod would chase him, because all his mindset is I want Superman, I want to destroy him. And then that rolls into the following the films that followed, which Batman vs Superman, not a good movie, horribly written, overly dark. They tried to put too many storylines into one film. You have, you know, Doomsday is his own movie, and I know I've harped on this in podcasts. Doomsday is his own movie. Doomsday is not created by Lex Luthor. The casting of Jesse Eisenberg was horrible. He is the worst possible Lex Luthor. I have seen a lot of bad Lex Luthors. Like, I am not a fan of Kevin Spacey in Superman Returns, but he's just terrible. Like, the casting is terrible. And it's just right from the start, the building blocks of this universe were on very shaky ground. I love the casting of Henry Cavill. Like, the main superhero castings, Henry Cavill as Superman, Ben Affleck as Batman, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Ezra Miller, I still don't mind him as Flash, even though he's a lunatic, as the Flash. I would have preferred they got the Flash from the TV show to play the Flash, which I think would have been much better. And then Jason Momoa as Aquaman. And I apologize, I cannot remember the gentleman's name who played Cyborg, but I thought he did a great job, even though I think they would have done better if they used some practical effects along with the CGI to accentuate the armor. I think it just looked way too fake. I think they could have easily have integrated some practical armor on him, kind of like what they did with Iron Man. And I think it would have looked better. But as far as the main actors, I have nothing against them. Some of the side, actors, I don't think Amy Adams did a really good job as Lois Lane. Diane Lane, I mean, she is just too young to play Martha Kent. I don't know if that sounds weird, but in another movie, she played Ben Affleck's lover, in the one where he actually played Superman, the biopic on the OG TV Superman. And Kevin Costner, I know they just wanted to get a big name to play Pa Kent, but once again, I think he was too young. I wish they would have just gotten some slightly older actors to play these parts. Jesse Eisenberg, once again, terrible. It seemed very disjointed. I know everyone gives a lot of credit to Kevin Feige on how he had a clear vision for all of the phases of the MCU, and there is that, and not only DCEU, but you can see with the Star Wars universe how poorly it's gone because there hasn't been a singular vision. But I think the problem with that isn't the fact that there wasn't a singular vision. It's just that you initially gave the reins to the cinematic universe to Zack Snyder. And Zack Snyder is not... None of his movies that I have seen, I would say, oh, that's cheerful in any way, shape, or form. When you look at a character like Superman, Wonder Woman, they are hope. And he luckily did not direct the first Wonder Woman, because I love the first Wonder Woman movie. The second one was terrible, but once again, he didn't have... I believe he was a producer on those, but he didn't really have as much creative input, and those movies were far better. I just think they made the wrong choice with who they were going to get to lead. Like, if you look at Iron Man, they got Jon Favreau. And Jon Favreau, everyone was ecstatic to work with him because he was not only a comedic actor, but he also did... he directed movies that had a comedic tone, including Elf, which I personally love. I think it's a great movie. And so he was able to bring the seriousness in that you would need in certain scenes, like when Iron Man's Tony Stark is escaping the cave, and his scientist friend dies, and when he gets betrayed by Obadiah Stane. He has that seriousness, but then he also has the levity that you need. The one-liners that Tony Stark gives, the plane ride with Rhodey in the beginning when the stewardesses were starting to dance around the pole and all that. It's like, that was funny. And that rolled into, okay, so there are serious moments in this movie, but there has to be levity. And that's what's missing in the vast majority. Now, mind you, it can be overdone. Like what happened with the theatrical release of Justice League with Joss Whedon coming in and overly, like, he was kind of forcing the humor too much, which you do not need to force humor in these movies. It needs to be something that's, good example, Thor Love and Thunder, tons of forced humor, and it was not good. You need to be able to make it seem natural and not make it seem like it's a forced thing. The thing I loved about the Marvel movies that I wish the DC movies had is they seemed to a point, minus all of the superheroes and extraterrestrial or magical things that happen, it seemed like it was a real human life. Whoever the character was, be it Captain America, be it Iron Man, Winter Soldier, these people had real problems and they dealt with them the way most people do, with humor, with tears. It felt more grounded, to where nothing in the DCEU felt that way. Nothing. And, I look back at all of the films that were made. The only two movies out of the mainline DC movies, which was, let's see, the movies are Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Wonder Woman 1984, Aquaman. I don't think I missed one, because technically, I believe the first Suicide Squad is in that canon, but I'm not really counting that. The only two movies I enjoyed were the first Wonder Woman and Aquaman. And they weren't perfect movies, but they were enjoyable movies. They were really fun movies to watch. And it's because they utilized that. They made both characters of Aquaman and Wonder Woman have a sense of humanity. And there was humor in the movies, but it wasn't forced humor. It felt like it belonged. It felt like it would legitimately happen in their basic interactions. So, I mean, the main reason I'm doing this rant is I need, as bad as Discovery is doing right now in reforming what the DC universe is going to look like, I really desperately hope with Superman, because Superman is like the gold standard in DC, which is obvious because he is the OG, he's the original. I hope they do start with Superman and they do it right. I love Henry Cavill. I don't think he'll be back to do it. So I hope they find somebody, a nobody. Because in reality, when Christopher Reeve was cast, he was not a household name. Neither was Brandon Roth, which I feel bad for Brandon Roth because he looked the part, he played the part. I think the script and the direction was not good in that film. He was kind of like Timothy Dalton in the 007 movies. He didn't really get the chance to shine in that role. And I hope they find somebody that can fit the part of not only Superman but of Clark Kent, because they need to pump humanity back into these movies. You know, it can't all just be superhero. You have to have something around them that grounds the movies into a false sense of reality. You know, there has to be something. And until I see that, you know, I'm going to be super skeptical. MCU has already lost me. Marvel has completely jumped the shark, in my opinion, or nuked the fridge, or whoever you want to talk about with that. I hope that DC fixes what's wrong with everything that's going on right now, and then when they do reboot the universe, they do it properly. And they get good directors, they get great writers, once again, great writers to rework these movies, because that is what is desperately needed. And for a fan, I desperately want to see good DC movies, because as of right now, the only DC movies I care about are the animated ones, because they're made in a very high quality. I want to be able to say the same thing about their live action, okay? Because like their TV shows they've done have been good. Not great, but good as far as DC. The best one would have to be Swamp Thing, which unfortunately got canceled early. But like Doom Patrol is good. And I just want there to be hope. That's my hope, is that there's hope in this new DC. So I hope you enjoyed this. Once again, listen to NerdPod Generations. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel, give a like, hit the notification bell, leave any kind of comments down below. Tell me how fat I look, how old I look. I got a green screen now because the background looked like garbage, and my brother, who is a fan, helped me out here. So please listen, and I hope you enjoy. Good night, folks.